With that, let's kick off. So welcome to the launch. For those of you who don't know us, Blackbullion is the financial wellbeing platform in higher education. We work with almost 50 partner universities, colleges, and also some apprenticeship and workplace providers as we move forward. We have students and partners across the UK, Australia, New Zealand. We have a partnership in South Africa. We are going for global domination to help every young person on the planet understand their finances better to create a better life for them. If you want to find out more, please drop us a note. This is as much as I'm going to say about that. The research was conducted on our behalf by Censuswide, which is a nationally recognized survey company. It was completely independently run by them. Over 1,000 students from across the UK, equal gender balance across all 4 nations. We wanted it to be as representative as possible of both the UK education sector, but also of our client base and our users. And the research was conducted, I was going to say last month, but it's the 1st of March. It was conducted in January. There were 3 primary things we wanted to understand. The first was, how has students' financial well-being changed over the last year, especially bearing in mind the COVID situation? How the cost of living crisis and money worries impacting on students, and how do students feel about their future? Linda, I see, has an early question. Linda, with your hand up, did you have a question?
Hi, Vivi. Hi. It was just to say, I don't know if it's myself, I don't know if it's my screen, but I can only see half of the presentation on the right hand side, so I don't know if it's the same for everyone else. I can't see the full screen.
Is anybody else having that issue? No. Seem Linda, it might just be.
I can see it fine.
Nope. Okay.
Sorry, Linda.
Okay, I might have to adjust my settings, but
okay.
Let's see. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, so there were 6 key finding areas, and we're going to go through them. Just to say, obviously, if we went into each of these in depth, we would be here for the rest of the day, which I'm sure you would all love. But being conscious of people's time, all of the findings, all of the graphs, everything is available in the actual report, which you will be able to get at the end. You'll be able to download directly off the site. So, but these are the 6 areas of findings, and we're going to go through them at a relatively rapid pace. We just wanted to give you an idea of the top line, and then you can dig into the report with a cup of coffee at your leisure. So the first question, really, which is the biggest question, is, can students afford to study in 2022? And the answer is yes, but it is getting harder. The average monthly gap between what students say that they have and what students say that they need has gone up a whopping 20% from last year. Bearing in mind that these results, these were collected in January, before in the UK inflation started to tick upwards and the cost of living started to climb. We are very concerned that this number is already up. Also bearing in mind that in January, we were in the middle of lockdown. So this is kind of worrying numbers. 20% is a significant amount under any conditions, bearing in mind that it was already high. So £330 a month shortage translates into, well over £3,000 for the year. That is not an insignificant amount of money. So we're very concerned about that climb. Just over 4 is 10.
Website you use for
Can we hop on mute, please? Sorry, whoever's not on mute. Could we please be on mute? Just over 4 in 10 students said that the money that they received from student finance is enough to cover their expenses. For a lot of students, the student finance money doesn't even cover their rent. We are very concerned about this, again, because the cost of living is starting to climb. The female students, and this is the beginning of the gender gap that I kind of alluded to right at the beginning, women are representing a dramatically smaller budget than men. This was true last year as well, but that gap is growing. The difference between what women believe that they need financially in order to confidently complete and what they actually have is growing. For men, it's actually dropped a little bit. So the gender differential, which is a theme that runs right throughout the report, is something that is both very interesting on an academic level, but very concerning from a practical point of view. And we'll show you why in the coming slides. Something that we all need to be aware of, and putting on my economist hat here, inflation is likely to continue ticking upwards. The cost of living is going to continue ticking upwards. probably until about April, May, when it will start to stabilize. Of course, what happens in the East is going to impact on this, but the cost of living is only going to climb, which means that that gap between what students have and what they need, and in fact, what people have and what they need, is going to continue to grow. This is a growing concern, and we will see monthly the cost of transport and food in particular starting to climb. Students had an awful lot to say. The survey was quantitative, but we also asked for commentary. Again, I will leave it to you to have a look inside the report about all of the students' comments. But really, the bottom right-hand quote is really kind of the headline. It's a constant worry. Money is a constant worry for young people, always has been, but this is only going to become exacerbated over the coming months and potentially the next couple of years. So how are the money worries specifically impacting on students? So 75% say that they worry about finances. This is exactly the same statistic as it was last year. What's interesting, of course, is that this time last year, students were in the middle of COVID lockdowns, but also many of you will know, because many of you were distributing it, the government handed over, politics aside, the government gave more money for hardship funding. So some of these gaps were able to be covered by money which is no longer available to them. So the fact that this statistic is exactly the same and high as it was last year, again, worries us. Partly and mostly because the mental health implications, as we are all aware, almost 60% of students report that money concerns impact on their mental health. The recent UPP report that came out said very similar things, with Student Minds saying that the biggest concern they had around student mental health always came down to money, which of course is something we've been saying for a while. So it is great that that conversation is now kind of happening in a more meaningful way. Almost half of students say that it affects their ability to focus and study, which of course is why we hope that they're all on campus. Over a third that it impacts on their grades, which of course speaks towards attainment, which is a problem both for students and for universities. With kind of Augur starting to make its way through the narrative, it's really important that students graduate and are able to get the kind of jobs that they want and be able to live the kind of life that they want. If money on campus is impacting their grades, it's going to impact on their ability to get a job after, which impacts on attainment, which impacts. The dominoes don't stop there. And over a third say physical health is impacted. Physical health, mental health, and financial health are the three pillars of well-being. Those of you that know me know that I bang on about this all the time. Again, students having a lot to say about how they're managing. The quote on the left-hand side, we believe is probably reflective of a lot of students who are partially using their student loan money in order to support family members who perhaps need the help, which means that students are not only having to use not enough money to fund their own life, but also using it to support others. Again, this is a concern to us, as this student is saying it's difficult for them to then get to university, transport being a real issue. Are there some things that we can do around that? For those of you for whom this is your first Blackbullion report, what you will see in the report when you get it is that we like to present the issues, but really we also like to present some possible solutions, suggestions, and ways of approaching the problems rather than just throwing problems at you. We're trying to pose some solutions as well, and there are some in the report. So how are students plugging the gap? As always, the majority of students are getting that money from family, and by family, of course, we mean parents, guardians, other family members. Again, for PIF, we're just referring to family to cover all of those different categories. But a lot of young people very concerned that their family is struggling and has a financial gap and are therefore uncomfortable or unwilling or don't want to be asking for money to compound that problem. This is where the gender gap starts again really to rear its head. Interestingly, and I'd love for us to dig into this a lot more, interestingly, women, female students are receiving more money from family, and they're more likely to receive money from family. They're also more likely to receive money from scholarships and bursaries, but they are a lot less likely to go down the kind of more entrepreneurial route, if we want to call it that, in terms of generating income online, self-employed, gig economy, and the like. This is really interesting because it starts to show female behavior when it comes to money is actually already quite different by the time young people are at university. Just a quick note on the scholarships and bursaries. Again, it's not just hardship money. There are tens of millions of pounds of additional scholarships and bursaries out there for young people to apply for. We at Blackbullion will have some news about this in the coming months, but would like to see more students ensuring that they are getting all the money that is on the table, which is not always the case. 50% of women, 50% of females compared to 37% of males are relying on family members. Again, what is inflation going to do? We can all surmise, we can all guess, but we will see how that plays out over time. A significant difference between the genders. Now, in terms of people believing how people's belief in their own ability to manage their money and how they actually manage their money, unsurprisingly, there is quite a big difference between how you think that you are with money and how you actually are with money. Almost 65% of students believe that they are in fact good with money, which is nice. But actually it doesn't really correlate with what they're actually doing. Being good with money also means very different things to students than it does to non-students. 1 in 4 students who say that they are good with money don't have any kind of emergency fund or any kind of money stashed to the side in case something happens. On the one hand, that's not a huge surprise. If people are already short of money, they're unlikely to be able to put money to the side. But there is also a lack of understanding that that is an important thing to be doing. When I was at university, that would have been less of an issue, but today's students are carrying around about £3,000 worth of laptops and mobile phones, bikes, tablets, any number of other pieces of kit. £3,000 is a lot of money if something goes wrong. If young people don't have insurance for their kit, which a lot don't, and if they don't have an emergency fund, then when things go wrong, which as we all know happens all the time, young people could suddenly find themselves without a critical piece of their educational infrastructure, like a laptop. Many universities last year and throughout COVID had laptop funds, which is, which was fantastic. There was a shortage in the country. Most universities will not be doing that going forward. Digital literacy and digital poverty is not going away. So what happens to students when things go wrong and they don't have an emergency fund? It's something that we push a lot at Blackbullion. But we would like to see more students at least considering the fact that things might happen that they might need money for. Meanwhile, 20% of students are buying cryptocurrency and saying that they are good with money. Now, not to get into the politics of crypto, always happy to do that another time. Cryptocurrency is neither good nor bad. It is, however, highly, highly volatile. In the last few weeks, we've seen cryptocurrency drop 30–40%. That is a huge drop and a huge amount of lost money for students who are putting hundreds of pounds into cryptocurrency every single month. For many of you might know, we do a money confessions campaign on Instagram. We ask students about cryptocurrency in particular, and a lot of students see crypto as their financial savior. This is concerning to us. We do a lot of sessions on crypto, trying to push the message of how risky it is. But nonetheless, 1 in 5 students who say they're good with money are in fact putting money into crypto. As you can see here on the left-hand side, crypto is the way forward. I understand why students say it. It may be true. It is not true in the short term while they're studying and on a fixed income. So something that we need to make sure that we are being very careful about with young people is pointing out the risks and the dangers of some of the activity that they are undertaking in order to plug the financial gap. Again, we are seeing a very significant gender difference when it comes to this behavior. Females tend to engage in more kind of good girl behavior, and I'm deliberately using air quotes so nobody shouts at me, good girl behavior of saving and budgeting and looking after every penny and being very conservative. Male students tend to have more confidence. Some might call it more recklessness when it comes to their money. They're more willing to try new things. They're more willing to put more money into more dangerous and financially risky behavior. We do, of course, see this mirrored in older non-students, where females tend to do less investing, men tend to do a lot more cryptocurrency, NFT, and the like. So we are again seeing this gap widen, or already wide at university stage. This graph again, these are all inside the report, so you don't need to be squinting your eyes in order to see every little bit, but we've pulled out the main stats. Again, comparing the differences between your students' behaviors depending on whether they are male or female. Women tend to be tracking their spending a lot more, setting budgets a lot more, and they are more likely to be saving into emergency funds. Men are significantly more likely, more than 3 times more likely, to be buying cryptocurrency, to be automating their investments, to be buying NFTs. Also, worryingly, the payday loan solution, if we can call it that, to plugging the gap is not going away. Students continue to use payday loans in smaller numbers than historically on average, but men continue to use payday loans. Women tend to not use payday loans as much. Something that is, again, interesting for us to consider is why is it that we are seeing such dramatically different behavior? And of course, for us at Blackbullion, what we are interested in is how can we maximize the good behavior and try and ensure that people are aware of the more risky behavior, regardless of how they identify their gender. So this in part could be, we suspect, based on where people are getting their information. And again, we see quite dramatic differences between where people are receiving their financial education. So family continues to be the number one place where all young people are getting their information. Almost 60% are learning about their finances from their parents and guardians and friends. This is fairly similar to last year's results. We are, of course, seeing a tracking down, as you would expect, as people spend more time on TikTok and on Instagram and with finfluencers, as we are about to see. The concern that we have is that not all parents and guardians are confident in money and in money management themselves, and are therefore not necessarily the only source of financial education that young people should be turning to. The UK currently ranks below the OECD average. 50% of adults don't feel confident in managing their own money day to day. So not all parents are the best financial educators by their own statements. So social media is playing a large role. This is both good and bad. The fact that money is becoming increasingly a non-taboo subject, and we're starting to talk about it more, is fantastic. That is what we have always hoped, and we've been saying so for years. But there are a lot of unqualified kind of finfluencers, which is a word I really hate, out there, who one day are selling face cream or they're selling holidays, and the next day they're selling NFTs, or they're selling cryptocurrency, or they're selling app downloads. These people by and large are unqualified. They do not have a financial background. They don't highlight the risks that are possible, and they are, of course, being paid to push the product. Back in the day, we just called this peer pressure. Today, we call them finfluencers. We are very concerned about this at Blackbullion. So something for everyone to be aware of. This is where a lot of young people are getting their information. In fact, it's 1 in 3, and we believe that number is going to continue to tick upwards. On the other side of it, what we are delighted is that almost the same number of students are turning to university. This is a fantastic result. We're looking forward to seeing this number climb over time. The thing to be aware of is that they're not always sure where to go. So they turn to the university, but they're not really sure where or how. Signposting better information, making sure that it is holistically available across the university is something that we delve into a little bit in the report. But very pleased to see that this number is a good number. Again, when we extrapolate to 2.5 million students in the country, you are talking about hundreds of thousands of young people. So this is a good result, and we look forward to seeing it climbing. Again, the male-female differential, quite dramatic here. 2 out of every 3 female students are learning about money from parents and guardians. 1 in 2 men are doing the same from parents and guardians. They're twice as likely to learn from internet forums. By the way, that doesn't just have to be Instagram and TikTok. There are also a lot of Reddit threads about money. Some of you may remember the Wall Street thread that kind of burst onto the scene in terms of media about a year ago. Some young people made a lot of money getting involved in buying companies like Hertz. Other young people lost a lot of money by buying companies like Hertz, which is a technically bankrupt organization. So all of these online forums and people talking to each other about what they're doing, there's positives and negatives to them. We just need to make people aware of the risk of taking guidance and advice from individuals that perhaps are not qualified to be doing that. We're interested to see this statistic because we believe that this is probably playing a role in why women have less financial confidence than men. The ideas around cryptocurrencies, NFTs, being able to buy stocks internationally, a lot of this was not possible or didn't exist even 15 years ago in any easy forum. And so a lot of parents, even if they are financially savvy, unless they are involved in the financial world, would not necessarily know what an NFT is or what crypto is, or how to purchase ETFs from the United States. So learning certain behaviors from family, like budgeting, like shopping around for utility bills, like saving money, like not spending more than you have, fantastic. More kind of innovative, if we can use that, financial instruments and financial activities are simply less likely to be something that a generation older will be particularly comfortable with. Again, making no judgment calls, just this is just the reality of a lot of these new financial instruments. As these students are telling us, parents are trying to give advice but don't necessarily know how or know why. I think what is interesting is the middle quote. Again, every single time we run any kind of survey, formal or not, with young people, there is always a call for earlier financial education at schools, colleges, and universities. A lot of young people and a lot of people on this call, I know, are very concerned about the fact that young people are learning everything but how to balance a budget and how to understand taxes and what the importance of saving some money. We do need to ensure that we are providing financial education as early as possible in a young person's educational journey, but also making the transition points as easy as possible. Again, how do we support young people before they come onto campus? This is something a lot of you have said to us. So we need to make sure that the transition points are as clear as is possible if young people are not getting adequate financial education at school or at home, which unfortunately is the story for a lot of young people. So how do students feel about the future? Almost 1 in 5 students basically feel pessimistic and lack confidence. This, for me, is the most jarring statistic. Without confidence for the future, it becomes very difficult for people to engage. So the cost of living is actually the thing that is most overwhelming young people and not such young people. 72% feeling very or somewhat worried. Again, we think these statistics are going to climb as the cost of living continues to climb. 1 in 2 students are worried about paying back their student loan. There is still an awful lot of confusion and anxiety about the student loan system. This is likely to be made all the worse by the fact that the system is about to change in a couple of, well, in the 2022, 2023, 2024 academic year, a lot of these numbers are going to change. With so many people not understanding the current system, this can only cause more confusion. We need to get out in front of this, especially for those young people at the moment who are considering a gap year. This might be a good year to not do a gap year and to rather stay on the old regime. What is the narrative around that? How can we support them and raise their confidence around that is going to be key for all universities on open days and as part of outreach, especially for widening participation and first in family students. We at Blackbullion had our money on students being most concerned about climate change. Boy, were we wrong. Cost of living, overwhelmingly the thing that young people are concerned with. Again, we'll see how this plays out over the coming months as cost of living spikes and then hopefully starts to drop back down again. COVID as a employability kind of retarder is the bit that young people are worried about. Am I going to be able to get a job? Is it going to be the right kind of job, given that COVID has really reshaped the entire world of work, certainly in the UK around things like work from home and the number of graduate positions and the like. Climate change remains a concern, as does Brexit. It is clear to us that this very much follows young people's now is more of a worry than later, which of course is how young people see the world and to a certain degree how they should see the world. Very concerned about the current issues a lot more than potentially things that may or may not be an impact later on. Life is getting more expensive. Everybody can feel that, but what does that mean going forward is a question mark. So we will wait and see how students respond. There is this concern around COVID and chances of employment, and it's going to be an interesting challenge for universities in terms of raising those employability skills and giving these young people the best possible shot after graduation. So as a conclusion, as we zip through this report, you can get the whole report and you will be able to delve into the 40 pages or so of statistics and graphs and quotes. But in conclusion, fundamentally, young people are facing an even more tricky future than they were when we met this time last year. The cost of living is a major concern, not just for young people, but for their parents, their families, and all of our communities. Mental health continues to be a concern. Again, I feel like we're going to start to see the real impact of mental health in the coming months, with COVID hopefully starting to be behind us and the situation in Ukraine hopefully stabilizing over the coming months. The mental health concerns which have been kept at bay because of the issues that people were dealing with at the time are going to start to come out. What is that going to mean? And what does that mean for young people's academic aspirations and their future? We are and remain very positive about education's ability to impact positively on all of these young people, to provide them with an opportunity to build the future that they want, to shift their financial trajectory. It is one of the cases of it's going to take a village, and we are really, we're really proud to play the role that we do in the community. And if we can help with anything, of course, don't hesitate to reach out. Please do make sure to get the copy of the report yourself so you can delve into it in your own time. As I said, with a cup of coffee. But thank you so much for joining us. And if there are any questions, I'd be delighted to address them.